Steve Bosquet, the opinion editor. With me, Dan Sweeney, Martin Dykman. You see the image of Austin Erblatt, who's one of our reporters at the Sun Sentinel. He's undoubtedly going to be writing news story or stories about this race. He does not take part in any editorial board decisions, but we welcome his participation. And Austin, if we have time, if you want to pose some questions, by all means, you can do so.
Sure, thanks. I'll just be listening in for a while.
Okay, great. Judge Gundersen and Ms. Alperstein, thank you both for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to dive right in, and I'll be glad to cite specifics. But Ms. Alperstein, in your questionnaire to the Sun Sentinel, you made several references that question whether Judge Gundersen has the appropriate temperament to be a judge in the 17th Circuit. You said in your questionnaire at one point that she, quote, deprives, from comments you've heard from other attorneys, she, quote, deprives litigants of their due process rights. That's a pretty serious charge in our judgment. Can you cite an instance that you're aware of where this happened?
I can, Steve, and thank you again for having me this afternoon. I feel very honored. So as you know, I practice in the family law division. I still practice in the family law division where Judge Gundersen previously was a sitting judge, and now she's in the foreclosure division. And not only has being a judge been a professional goal of mine for a very long time, but I have been asked and received support from a large amount of not only the lawyers who appeared before Judge Gundersen in the family law division, but as well as in the foreclosure division. Some of those attorneys have even been my opposing counsel. And I don't take these comments lightly. But she has been reversed on a number of occasions for violating due process rights. There are several cases. One is Benedict versus Benedict. The citation is 296 Southern 3rd 438, and it's a case from 2020 where she was reversed on appeal for denying a pro se litigant the opportunity to be heard. And unfortunately, that's not the only instance. There are several other citations that have been reported. And I've had a number of lawyers come up to me and tell me that unfortunately, in their experience before Judge Gundersen, that she would not let people have the opportunity to testify. And then she would rule against them simply because there was no evidence presented. But the reason there was no evidence presented was because she didn't let them have the opportunity to be heard. Unfortunately, I've also had litigants call me who find out that I am running against Judge Gundersen, who have said that she's denied other people the right to have an interpreter in her courtroom.
Okay. There's a lot there to sort through, but let me just, of course, Judge Gundersen, can you address the Benedict versus Benedict reversal?
I'm well aware of the Benedict case, and that reversal was basically due to a not allowing a financial affidavit to be questioned. Mr. Benedict, it was numerous times that he had come in for different things. It was a modification. The modification was granted, but there was an issue with the financial affidavit coming in. And yes, I was reversed on that issue. Again, not everybody's happy as a sitting judge. I'm sure you're aware judges get reversed. The number of reversals I have is probably about 3% in the volume of cases. That was early on, those cases when I was early on sitting as a sitting judge. And yes, sometimes it will be. The 4th District Court of Appeal did not feel that, they did not say that I was so egregious in quote unquote denying due process that it couldn't be remanded back to me. It was more a procedural due process issue. Now, as far as interpreters go, in civil court, in family court, we do not supply interpreters. They are not provided. So any individual is told that they can bring their own interpreter, but in family court, in civil divisions, we are not supplied with interpreters. And we, even in domestic violence, we have to wait for criminal court get civil domestic violence. Even there, it takes lower priority than the criminal division. So when there's a statement made that I quote unquote didn't allow an interpreter, that is a falsity. It's just the parties have to provide their own. The court does not provide them.
Okay. Do you think that there are legitimate questions about your temperament in the courtroom?
I don't believe so. As I said, any judge is a new judge, and where it's always on a learning curve. And I'm sure that I was a little bit sterner and stricter when I first started, but I learned, and as I progressed. One of the reasons that I believe that experience does matter is if you continue to rotate judges out, we all have to learn to be a judge. And so, again, there may have been some instances where I may have been a little more stern than otherwise, but I've always moved fairly and with compassion. And when I was in the family division, focused on the best interest of the children. Again, there's always going to be a side that's not happy with my rulings. I can cite when Ms. Alperstein, she hasn't named the attorneys that call her. She hasn't named them. I can tell you that I know in the foreclosure division, at least, there were at least 3 attorneys that were on her host committee for her fundraiser that are defense attorneys that I've ruled. They have been unable to overturn me in the 4th District Court of Appeal. So I can't speculate as to, whether they are or are not the ones. But again, you can talk to any judge, and I'm sure there are people that will not like their rulings and, would call and solicit.
Okay. All right. It's a very big circuit, and you're the only sitting circuit judge who's being challenged this cycle. Why do you think that is?
Again, I can't speculate to that. I just know that Ms. Alperstein has told people that she was asked to run against me. She's told you she was asked to run against me. So I don't know, because they've never named them. So that if she was asked, she was asked.
Miss Alperstein, you did make that statement to me, and you made the statement in the questionnaire that a lot of lawyers have encouraged you to run in Group 9 for this seat. It's not an unreasonable question to ask you to identify who some of these lawyers are. Can you do that?
So I'm not comfortable identifying the names of those lawyers, but it is public record. You can see the over 500 supporters on the Florida Department of Elections website for all of the lawyers and community leaders who are supporting me. I can tell you that I am endorsed by former property appraiser Lori Parrish, by retired Judge Jeff Cohen, by Eugene Pettis, who is a past president of the Florida Bar, by Dory Foster Morales, who's a past president of the Florida Bar, James Fox Miller, who's another past president of the Florida Bar, and the list can go on. But it's very humbling and very overwhelming, the support that I have received. It was the people who I knew were going to support me regardless of when I ran. The community has known that this has been a goal of mine for a long time. But the calls I've been getting and the support that I've received by people who don't know me, but who have found out who my opponent is, has been very humbling.
All right. How often have you appeared personally in front of Judge Gundersen?
I only had, I believe, 1 case when I was in the family law division, and it was brief.
Was the result in that case favorable to you or unfavorable, or was it settled? Or what?
So this has nothing to do with anything that's between me and Judge Gundersen. This is a professional goal of mine for a long time.
Well, let me ask this:
yeah.
since you've raised questions about her temperament, how was her temperament when you appeared personally before her?
So it was not great.
How so?
She was very disrespectful to the other side, to the opposing counsel. In my case,
You
but
think
it was short-lived. It was we were out of the case before the case finished.
You think that opposing counsel would be willing to talk to the Sun Sentinel about what happened?
I don't know.
I see.
But I believe some of the other supporters on my list would probably be willing to speak with you.
Okay.
But on your list, are you referring to donors?
Yes.
I'm going to just take a breath here and just ask Dan Sweeney and Martin Dykeman if you guys want to jump in and ask a series of questions. Now's a good time.
I'm trying to remember, Judge. I think it was your questionnaire where you said you wouldn't discuss any particular cases. Am I correct on that? I don't have the questionnaire in front of me.
Well, I think you had, if, in the questionnaire, it was like citing particular cases. I think I had cited one that had a written opinion. Generally, the cases that go to the fourth or PCA predominantly. So I had one written case. I think you had asked about cases that and rulings. Now in the family division, some of because of the sensitivity of it, didn't feel comfortable disclosing those matters. I mean, Ms. Alperstein brought up the Benedict case, which, I could answer to, briefly on that. But yes, and as far as, when you talk about, you can look at the donor list as to those are her quote unquote supporters. As we all know, writing a check is not a written endorsement. Pardon me?
No, go ahead, finish.
And I have written endorsements and have been endorsed by both the PBA, the Broward Teachers Union, several mayors in the community, Judy Paul, Frank Ortiz, Dean Trantalis, Wayne Messon, school board member Patty Good, Commissioner Tom Good, Commissioner Ira Sipple, former Mayor Mickey Belvedere, Councilwoman Carol Hatton. I've also been endorsed by Florida Board of Governors Jay Kim. So yes, I have numerous endorsements and have been respected and heard a lot of feedback, positive feedback from attorneys alike on the both the temperament and my rulings in following the law.
Judge Gunderson, in your questionnaire, you talked about how experience matters, and you also talked about dealing with adversity in your own life. And if you're comfortable doing so, when voters pick judges, they pick oftentimes based on personal attributes they admire. Certainly, I wanted to ask you, discuss with us, if you can, what kind of adversity were you referring to?
Well, when my marriage ended, I was a single parent with a high school education and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old to raise. So I worked full time while I went to school part time to earn my bachelor's degree in business from Boston University, graduating with honors, went on to be an administrator at Brigham and Women's Hospital before making that decision to go to law school. I know what it's like to face hard times. I know what it's like to go without, and I know the stress it puts on a family. I can tell you that when I ran for circuit court judge in 2016, the reason I ran is we were losing our seasoned judges in family court. And as a family law practitioner for over 23 years, I believe the community deserved to have a judge who understood from day one without the learning curve as to what they went through. But it's that life experience that I bring to the bench that you can't learn in a book and you can't learn in school. And combine that with my over 29 years legal experience, including almost 6 years on the bench, that's invaluable. And that is what I bring to be able to understand the people that come before me and show compassion within the bounds of the law. And as I said, I do follow the law, and there are going to be people that aren't going to be happy. And yes, they're going to have issues, but that's the nature, unfortunately, of being a sitting judge.
You're suggesting to me, and this may just be my interpretation, but you've said it now a couple of times. You're suggesting to me that when someone takes issue with your temperament, that it's sour grapes, that they weren't happy with the result they got in your courtroom, as opposed to your conduct and your behavior. Is it sour grapes in your opinion?
Well, as I said, I think that some of it is. I am not going to discount that early on as a sitting judge, just learning, to be a judge in that temperament. There was a learning curve and a time period, but I learned, and I did. Any issues that may have come up were addressed and didn't recur.
Okay, my colleague Dan Sweeney had his hand raised. Turn your mic on, Dan.
Okay. Judge, you said earlier that, monetary donations are not a formal endorsement, and you're absolutely right. But it is unusual to have a sitting judge, an incumbent, within having raised noticeably such a smaller amount than a challenger. In this case, about $24,000 to about $162,000. And a lot of the money coming to your opponent is coming from law firms, from attorneys, but more than that, also from legal assistants, from court reporters. Do you think that says nothing about your reputation in the courthouse?
No, not necessarily. I know that the information I've received is her father, Gary Marks, is a PIP attorney and has basically assisted in the fundraising to get his colleagues and the PIP attorneys and a lot of attorneys. And again, my forte, both in 2016, the Sun Sentinel brought this up in 2016 when Rosemary asked me, how could, I'm sure you may have remembered it, and she asked me point blank, you know, Ms. Gundersen, how can you win? You don't have donations. You can't win an election. Well, in 2016, I think I showed that that's not necessarily the case. Fundraising has not been my forte. I am more a grassroots campaigner. I have spent over 20 years developing relationships in the community, and it's that community support, not necessarily the lawyers. I was a solo practitioner, so I wasn't in a large firm. Ms. Alperstein is in a large firm, so she has those connections as well. So again, I think it's just a matter of a difference of the worlds we come from.
Ms. Alperstein,
Yes.
why don't you address those comments that the judge made about your fundraising activity?
Sure. So as Judge Gunderson knows, my father is actually not permitted to fundraise by the rules of the judicial canons. So he is a PIP lawyer, but the fundraising has been solely from, I have a very dedicated team of attorneys who I have grown up with in this profession, who have known that this has been a passion of mine for a long time, and who have said when I made the decision to run that they would be there for me. And so I can't speak to all the donations, but the donations have been from family law attorneys, including my opposing counsels. So attorneys that I have gone up against in court, which speaks volumes. They have come from lawyers who have appeared before Judge Gundersen. They have come from lawyers and law firms who don't know Judge Gundersen, who have not appeared in front of her, but are aware of her reputation, which is why I have been asked to run in this particular race. And Steve, if I can, I do want to talk about experience, because one thing that my opponent says a lot is experience matters, but nobody has asked me about my experience. And I would like to share that with you, because I
Sure.
have been a lawyer with the law firm of Boy, Schiller, and Flexner for 14 years, which is my entire legal career. It's unusual for someone to be with the same firm for their entire career. That it's been the firm that I have been with since literally the day I graduated law school. And it is one of the most well-renowned firms in the state, if not the country. I have had the opportunity to work with some of the best lawyers in the state, if not the country, practicing family law at a very high level. And that experience that I have and the mentorship I've had from leaders within the Florida bar, as well as a past president of the Florida bar, really is bar none. I have really learned how to do it right. They emphasized in me how to be compassionate, how to treat others with respect, how to practice with integrity and follow those rules of professional conduct, but also remembering where you came from. And that's really what's grounded me, and really giving back to that community, which has been a part of my career. And a really proud moment of my career was when I was named Attorney of the Year last year by Legal Aid of Broward County, in recognition of all the pro bono work I do. So while I do practice complex family law litigation at a very high level, I remember where I came from, and I worked very hard in this community. And in this case, really, Steve, it's not the quantity of the experience, but it's the quality. And I believe that quality of the experience I've had sets me apart from my opponent.
All right, thank you. As you said, you've done a lot of complex family law litigation, but have you ever tried a case before a jury?
I have not, because family law cases are non-jury. So I have not had a jury trial, but I've had observed jury trials.
Should voters have any hesitation about electing someone to the circuit bench in one of the biggest circuits in the country, despite, as you've discussed in great detail, your 14 years with boys and the work you've done, the great pro bono work you've done? This person's never had to pick a jury in her life, or argue a case before a jury. I'm not sure she's prepared for a jury situation. What would you say to that?
So some of the best lawyers we have in Broward County, or some of the best judges on the bench, never even stepped in foot into a courtroom. And there's a reason that there's judicial college. And there's a reason that you have mentors in the courtroom, in the courthouse. And a lot of the judges really, with the exception of criminal and some civil matters, are non-jury. And so I don't think that should dissuade anybody from voting for me one way or the other.
Thank you. Go ahead, Martin Dykeman. Go ahead.
My question is in the same line. I don't know, I'm not as familiar with the 17th Circuit as I should be, but I believe at some points in their careers, the judges stay around long enough, they rotate into other divisions. Neither of you has had experience as a judge in the criminal or civil divisions with our jury trials. So I'd like to ask you both what you would do to prepare yourself for that.
Go ahead, Judge Gunderson. You go first.
Okay, well, as you're well aware that when we are rotated into a division, we don't necessarily have that background and experience in that area of law. I can tell you when I was rotated into the foreclosure division, I had never done real estate. I had never done foreclosure. So I basically studied up and crammed for what I needed to learn. So it's just as a matter of when you have the necessary experience and the necessary tools to be able to learn, it's a matter of learning and also utilizing the lawyers that come before to bring the case law to educate the judge in those cases. But I've done various things in my judicial career, including extradition, first appearances, family court, domestic violence. And it just so happens that, foreclosure is in the civil division. So I am in the civil, it just happens to be what I call boutique division that only handles residential mortgage foreclosures. And it's a non-jury, you're absolutely right. But I do have jury experience as a litigator.
Okay.
And have tried cases in front of a jury as well, and got to tried case in front of the jury from start to finish, from picking all the way through to final verdict.
Okay. Ms. Alperstein.
So I think what sometimes people forget about family law is that while I am a divorce lawyer, given the nature of my practice, we do have a crossover with other areas of the law. I've also done appellate work. So I've argued before the 3rd District Court of Appeal. I've written briefs presented to the 4th District Court of Appeal that have been ruled upon by the 4th DCA. But I also represent, when we have complex family law matters, we don't get the easy cases at Boies Schiller Flexner. So we have clients dealing with bankruptcy. We have clients who are dissolving their businesses. We have clients who unfortunately have criminal matters. So we work with criminal counsel to make sure that our clients' rights are protected. At one time, I was at South Bay Correctional Facility every week visiting a client, making sure that his due process rights were protected in a trial that we had. So I feel blessed in the area of family law that I've had to really been exposed to other areas of the law as well.
You've been very active in the community, Ms. Alperstein, as your resume indicates, and your comments here this afternoon. Why would the Broward Teachers Union be supporting your opponent?
I believe that's a question that you would have to ask them. Unfortunately, I was not given the opportunity to have an interview.
Okay. By the way, I just wanted to clarify.
And Steve, if I can, as
Yes.
the granddaughter of public school teachers and the daughter of a public school teacher, I would have enjoyed and liked the opportunity to have an interview with the Broward Teachers Union.
Okay, so the BTU never said, we're making a choice in this race.
I was not invited by BTU or the PBA to have an interview. Those endorsements were made without interviewing me.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago, if I heard you correctly, that your father, Gary Marks, who's an attorney, is precluded by the canons from raising money for your campaign. Tell us why that is.
Because there are judicial canons that are for a reason, that judges and judicial candidates are supposed to be held to a higher level. So as a judicial candidate, I am not permitted to fundraise. I have a committee, and as well as immediate family members, such as my husband, my mother, and my father, anyone who would be considered an extension of me, are not allowed to fundraise either.
Judge Gunderson, based on that statement that Ms. Alperstein has just made, Judge Gunderson, do you have any reason to question whether Ms. Alperstein is complying with all the canons as they relate to fundraising?
I don't have exact like evidence or, and just as she has alluded to, well, people have said and people have heard. It was just some things that were relayed back to me. But again, it's just, I don't have exact evidence as to the fundraising aspect of that.
Judge, do you have a campaign consultant who's helping to run this race for you?
No, I'm no, I'm running my own race. I was my own campaign manager in 2016 and won my race. So I am running my own campaign as far as management goes. And I do have, people who help on the ground game to coordinate all the ground game issues. But as far as consultant, no.
Okay. Ms. Alperstein, do you have a paid campaign consultant?
I do, Steve.
Who is that, please?
Barbara Miller.
Okay. All right. Also, Ms. Alperstein, correct me if I'm wrong, you have applied for judicial appointments through the JNC 4 times.
I have, Steve. I was encouraged actually back in 2018 by various members of the judiciary who thought that and understood this was my calling to start applying with the JNC. And with the support of my firm and other colleagues, I did apply with the JNC 4 times.
Why were you not successful?
I don't know, Steve. From what I understand, there's a lot of people and a lot of great judges who have come out of the JNC. But it has taken some time, and there's a lot of people who have been applying much longer than I have. And the feedback and encouragement I got from the JNC was wonderful. And I've met a lot of wonderful people and friends that have come out of that process. And I was even encouraged the last time I interviewed with the JNC that they recognized that I would be a great judge in Broward County and that probably I should run if I wanted this sooner than later.
Is the JNC in Broward County today, for county and circuit appointments, I mean, is it, in your judgment, is it independent? Is it, is it a stacked deck politically, or is it an independent group?
I don't think I'm permitted by the rules to answer that question, Steve.
Okay. Okay. One more question for you, Ms. Alperstein. In your questionnaire, again, in the context of discussing Judge Gunderson's judicial temperament, you also made the following statement, and Judge Gunderson, you'll have a full opportunity to respond. You raised the possibility that she is violating the code of judicial conduct by campaigning in the courthouse. Tell us as specifically as you can, how, when, what is this?
So I don't know specifically because I'm not there, but there is a rule, one of the many rules of the Code of Judicial Conduct that I do adhere to, that says you are not allowed to campaign in the courthouse. And I have been told by people who have appeared in front of Judge Gunderson or have heard her in the hallways that there is campaigning from the bench and in the hallways of the courthouse that is going on.
Okay, but I want to just ask again, as specifically and clearly as I can, do you have any firsthand knowledge of this going on?
I have not seen it.
Okay.
But we've also been on Zoom for quite some time. So family law cases are still on Zoom. So I haven't been back in the courthouse as often I was before.
Understood. Judge Gunderson, what do you say to this?
Well, one of her host committee attorneys did file a motion to disqualify, alleging that last year I allegedly had tried to campaign. I can't speak to the truth or veracity of it because it was a motion to disqualify, which I can't speak to the truth or veracity without automatically being disqualified. I'm just saying that that individual did file a motion to disqualify last year. Well, actually, he filed it this year, alleging something that happened a year ago with multiple cases between that time that he was before me, but now that he was on her host committee, had raised these issues. So again, timing's everything as to if indeed, but I can't speak to the truth or veracity of it. As to the campaign in the hallways, I'm 100% Zoom right now. It's not a secret that I'm up for re-election and people will ask, are you up or not? But I don't, quote unquote, campaign, and I'm not campaigning. I know the rules and do not violate the rules. People, ask, how's it going? I'm like, fine, looking forward to August 23rd. I mean, and
Sure.
And that's about it. I do not campaign and have not campaigned in violation in the courthouse.
Can you tell us the name of this attorney who filed that motion to disqualify you?
He's on her host committee, so yeah, Jonathan Klein. I have no problem. He's on her host committee, so.
Okay. What's going to, Judge Gunderson, what's going to determine the outcome of this election? I mean, obviously it's, I don't mean it in a flippant way. I mean, it's who gets the most votes. We know that, but I mean, how in your judgment will the outcome of this race be decided by voters?
Well, again, in 2016, my opponent had a lot of support in the courthouse. I was counted out in the courthouse, in that courthouse circle, that my opponent would be the winner. Again, I have built a lot of relationships in this community, and it is the community that is doing the majority of the voting. And I won my election by almost 14 percentage points. I won with almost 355,000 votes in Broward County. Those relationships, I have stayed engaged in the community, as you can see by my list of memberships and civic associations, as well as legal organizations. I'm very involved in the community, both with the Lions Club and with the Kiwanis and with the American Association of University Women and with Prestige Club. These type of community organizations that are involved with children and family and veterans. So yes, it is that community-based support, that grassroots support, that I believe will be the prevailing part. Anybody can write a check. Anybody can say, I'm going to financially support you, but it is that grassroots that is out in the community that I won in 2016. And I believe that will be the deciding factor.
Okay, Ms. Alperstein, 355,000 votes.
Almost. I don't want to be misquoted. Almost.
Yeah. I have not checked the number. We will, of course, but we all know these are down ballot races, and we all know the tendency of voters to the phenomenon known as ballot drop off. As you go down the ballot, fewer and fewer votes are cast in the aggregate for races. The purpose of these kinds of interviews and this effort by the Sun Sentinel is to prevent that from happening so that people are more familiarized. But the point I wanted to make, Ms. Alperstein, is that that's a lot of people in Broward, and a lot of those same people are going to be voting on August 23rd. At the Sun Sentinel, we do generally take the position in races like this that the challenger needs to present a very compelling and overwhelming case why an incumbent judge should be thrown out of office. So I want to ask you whether how do you feel you've made that case to us and to the voters?
Sure. And if I can, that race was a little bit different. That race actually went to a general election. So Judge Gundersen first was in a primary, in an August primary, and she came in second. And then it was the general election where she did win. So this is a little bit different. This is just an August election. It's a primary. Usually, I understand it is a lower voter turnout, but they are smart voters. They are voters who do their research and who really ask questions and who don't bubble in ballots and really care to go vote. And what I would say, Steve, to that is I think if you look at my community involvement, this is not something that has happened overnight. I have a stellar reputation in the community. It's been a professional goal of mine for a long time. I have had some of the best education. I attended the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I attended the University of Florida Levin College of Law School. I have worked with some of the best lawyers in this state. And again, I think it speaks volume for the fact that people who are in that courthouse day in and day out, people who have appeared before Judge Gundersen in both the family law division, and then after she got transferred to the foreclosure division, my own opposing counsel, past presidents of the Florida Bar, community leaders, including I also have commissioners from various cities who have endorsed me, who are not in a legal community. I think I care, Steve. I'm a genuine person. What you see is what you get. Anyone who knows me, they say, why are you leaving big law? And I tell them, I never went to law school to end up at a partner at a big law firm. I went to law school because I wanted to help people. And I really believe in our judicial system. And when I have lawyers who call me, who don't know me, who say, what can we do to help? When I have litigants who call me, who don't know me and say, what can we do to help? Because unfortunately, Steve, people have lost faith in our judiciary. And I believe our judicial branch is one of the most important branches of our government. And when people start losing faith in our judiciary, when they feel that their voices are not heard in a courtroom, we are going down a slippery slope. And we deserve to have judges in Broward County that the people can believe that when they walk into that courthouse, that they are treated with dignity and respect, that there is due process being exercised, that, even if you don't rule in their favor, that they did have an opportunity to have their day heard. And I think all of my community work that I've done, both with the Jewish Federation of Broward County, the David Posnack JCC, the work I do with the Florida Bar. I'm on many committees for the Florida Bar. I just got reinstalled an hour ago on the Executive Council of the Family Law section of the Florida Bar. I've drafted legislation to help improve the lives of Florida families. This is not community work that I do for the awards and the accolades. I was raised in a family of doers. And like I said before, I'm a proud product of public school teachers. My grandfather, my dad's father, got started as a lawyer in Broward County when you couldn't be a Jew, and really on the heels of the civil rights movement. And he built his practice both in Miami and in Broward, representing a large population of the African-American community who couldn't get access to legal representation. And this is a part of who I am. I was always taught you give back, you remember where you came from. And I believe that I've been able to really excel in my legal career, but I believe that I can do more as a judge, and that I will have the better temperament. I will make sure people's voices are heard, and that you treat everybody, no matter who they are, or where they come from, with dignity and respect. And again, that's what I'm here for. And I'm hoping that I can do that.
Thank you very much. Tell us your grandfather's name.
My grandfather,
the grandfather you referred to.
His name was Marvin Marks.
Marvin Marks, yes. And was he from Miami or from Broward County?
So he lived in Miami, but he had a practice in Miami and Broward County.
And give us sort of just a range of the years when he practiced law and when he was active in the community. What would that have been? The 40s, 50s back then?
Yes. So
yeah, okay.
Probably the late 40s, really until the day he passed away.
Okay. One of you guys had your hand up, Dan or Martin, I forget which. Go ahead, Dan. Turn your mic on.
To follow up on your question there, Ms. Alperstein, you mentioned that in your role in the bar that you had helped draft legislation. Can you be more specific and say exactly what you drafted and what the outcome was?
Sure. So I'm on the legislation committee of the Florida Bar, or the family law section, rather, the Florida Bar. So we're responsible for various bills. One that I was really integral with, while it had not passed, was after gay marriage became legal, was renaming and redoing the statutes to make them gender neutral. But there's been equitable distribution statutes that I've worked on. There is, some alimony legislation that I had an opportunity to work on. But again, it's, some has passed, some has not passed. But it's being involved really in the day-to-day work and seeing the behind the scenes of how, bills become a law.
Ms. Alperstein.
On the alimony thing.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Dan.
On the you mentioned alimony. Is this you worked on the permanent alimony repeal that has come up year after year after year?
As a member of the legislation committee and now the executive council, yes. So for the past several years, I've been a part of the alimony bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up question in that regard. And again, we're aware of the canons, but we're also aware of the fact that the family law section of the Florida Bar has been extremely vocal in urging the governor to veto this alimony bill, which just landed on his desk a couple of days ago. Can you address, as a candidate for judge, the pros and cons of that bill as it affects families?
In light of the bill, and like you said, that it is in front of the governors, I don't believe that I am permitted to talk about that.
Okay, understood. Ms. Gunderson, again, I'm going down your biography. You're a member of the board of directors of the Mount Olive Development Corporation, right?
I was.
Oh,
it was one of the you asked for the civic organization I had been belonged to, and that was a list over 30 years of my legal career. I've been involved with a lot of things, and before I took the bench, I
Okay,
was on the board of directors of the Mount Olive Development Corporation. I was on the board, the Broward County School Board Diversity Committee,
Right.
the Commission on the Status of Women in Broward County. But once I was elected to the bench, I contacted the JEAC to see what organizations I could remain in and what I couldn't. So that was one of them that I didn't remain.
At the present time, all you're doing are foreclosure cases, right?
I am assigned to the residential foreclosure division. I do that. We also have rotation through, because we have assigned duties. So I do first appearance when I have that assigned duty. I've done extraditions.
Right.
So right now my assignment is solely residential mortgage foreclosure. That's the division I'm assigned to. Yes.
What's, if you can tell me how specifically as you can, what's the current backlog of cases in your division?
Actually, when I came into the division in January of 2020, we had a little over, almost about 3,100 cases. Since coming into the division, working right through the pandemic on Zoom, I have reduced that case count to, the last count I got was, I believe, a little over like mid 1,500. So I've reduced the case count by almost 50%. And that's due to very diligent case management. I have an amazing staff that assisted so that no case goes unlooked at. And so I do case management, bring them before. Of course, through the pandemic, there were governor's executive orders that stopped everything as far as finalization, but didn't stop the cases. So I was doing anywhere from 100 to 500 cases a week of addressing those, all the motion practice and case management of those cases. It was just through the moratoriums, various stages, they couldn't be finalized. Now, all of those moratoriums have been lifted. All of the what I called soft cushion federal regulations under the CFPB, acronyms are not my best forte.
Okay, sure.
that they, so now we're just even this last reporting that we just got the other day, I'm still closing and resolving more cases than are coming in filed. So our case is maintaining a steady flow without being spiking.
Okay. We're respectful of your time, both of you, and you're both running busy campaigns and running a courtroom and running a legal practice. I want to give each of you about a minute or so, not much more than a minute, to make sort of a closing argument. I know that some civic groups in Broward you'll be going to, if you haven't already, they're only going to give you a minute or 2 minutes to speak. And I know it's frustrating, but we've had a good discussion here this afternoon. So I'm going to give you both a chance to make sort of a closing statement. And let's just do it alphabetically. And Ms. Alperstein, you're first.
Sure.
No.
So thank you again for the opportunity. As I mentioned before, I'm a proud second-generation Floridian. I was born and raised in Miami, but proud to Broward, my home. And I've been a family law practitioner for the past 14 years, where I practice family law at the highest level. I'm a court-appointed guardian ad litem, so I get appointed by various members of the judiciary to make an investigation as to issues when, unfortunately, children are put in the middle of their parents' disputes. But my proudest work that I've done in my career has been my volunteer work with the legal aid of Broward County and all the pro bono work and free legal services that I provide in the community. So much that I was named Attorney of the Year last year in recognition of that work. And that's why I'm here. I'm here because I care about people. This has been a professional goal of mine for a long time, but I also was asked by a number of well-respected lawyers and community leaders to run in this particular race because they recognize that we need judges in Broward County who care. We need judges in Broward County who are compassionate, who are going to have a fair temperament, who are going to treat everyone with dignity and respect, and who understands your process. I've been involved in the community for a very long time, long before I've wanted to be a judge. And I have been working very hard and making myself to be a better lawyer, to be that person. And I really do believe in this. I believe in the oath of the office. I believe in judicial integrity. We need judges who are going to be fair and compassionate. And I believe I can help restore that faith in our judiciary. And I really, it's a passion of mine, Steve. It's a public calling. it's really making a difference in our community. It's how I was raised, that if I can leave this world a little bit better, then I've done something right. And I believe that my experience as a community leader, as a lawyer in the legal field, and very well respected, will make me a great judge and deserve the people of deserve the residents of Broward County the judge they deserve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Judge Gunderson, you have the floor.
Well, as I stated, in my almost 30 years of legal experience, as well as my life experience, that's what makes the difference. I pride myself on the fact during my legal career, never being sued by a client, and have always been, maintained the highest level of integrity. I'm AB rated. I received both 3 years of legal elite and 3 years of super lawyer. You don't get that by not being respected by your peers. So, when the aspersions come of my, that there are lawyers and there are people in the community, I didn't grow up in privilege. I acknowledge that. Everything I have, I've worked hard to get where I am, and I have put in the work to do it. I've raised 2 children. I have 4 grandchildren. I have 3 great-grandchildren. I understand what the family dynamic is and these stresses. And again, not growing up in privilege, I'm not in those circles. So there are things that come with having circles when you grow up in privilege. I didn't do that. So when we talk about fundraising, we talk about those kind of connections. It is telling that my opponent doesn't want to name the people that asked her to run against me. It's also telling when she says there are community leaders that have endorsed her. I can name the ones I have written endorsements by. I did. Several mayors. It's because of the respect I have out in the community with community leaders, school board members, commissioners, and mayors. So it is that reputation. It is that what I have built through my career, that I believe I have been doing a good job on the bench. I have been diligently hard working for the community in all the divisions I have served. I have maintained a low case count. I have been diligently hearing cases, timely getting, facilitating, having cases heard, getting timely rulings. The attorneys that practice before me, I have attorneys that do respect me, Blake Dolman, Kelly Hancock, Bill Clayton. There are people out in the community that know full well, and attorneys as well. So again, I think that I've done a good job on the bench. I have done what I have pledged I would do. I've always, I work hard and show up. And so I believe I deserve to be reelected. And I believe I have that community support.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren
Thank you.
Alperstein. I really appreciate your participation. Best of luck to both of you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
You too. Goodbye.